Do the audio check. Okay, hello everybody. If somebody is online here, can you please let me know if you can hear my voice? I'm gonna do the audio check. Let's see. Yeah, so it's working. Thank you very much. Hi guys, welcome to Optism Academy Thursday sessions. Today, my special guest is Paul Convery. He is an expert in resume and LinkedIn profiles. He is an executive recruiter who is going to be walking us through how you guys can all optimize your resume and LinkedIn for your career success. Since this session is 1 hour and there is a hard stop at 11 a.m. PST for me, I will appreciate if we can contain this to 11 and then end the conversation at 11. So I'm not going to take much of your time. You guys are already familiar with Optism Academy. If you're not, go check out the link in the description of this video. Now I'm going to bring Paul and have him give his introduction as well as walk you guys through on how you can create a great looking resume as well as LinkedIn profile. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anil. So yes, my name is Paul Convery. I've been a recruiter for over the past 20 years. I started off in technical recruiting, working for different staffing companies and professional services companies, primarily in the greater Seattle area. I currently am the owner of a company called One World Consulting Group. We are a recruiting and career coaching company, and we service Seattle, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, and Toronto, Canada. So we are international as well. And what I'm going to walk you through today is basically what I have found over my years of experience as a recruiter as to what's an effective resume, what's going to help get through the applicant tracking systems, what's going to pass the recruiter screens, as well as grab the attention of a hiring manager. And then from LinkedIn perspective, I've been on LinkedIn since 2007 and have used LinkedIn as a tool for not only finding candidates for positions I'm recruiting on, but also for working with clients who are looking to find talent as well. So again, it's a very powerful tool. I'm going to walk you through very high level as to how that your LinkedIn profile can be maximized. So I'm going to start with putting up on the screen a template that I'm going to walk you through in terms of this is how you want to structure your resume. And what I'm thinking is we'll probably do half hour on the resume and we'll spend about 15 minutes on LinkedIn. And then I am open to taking some, doing a Q&A session for the last 15 minutes of this session. So, and then I'll also put my contact information on the template. So if you have any additional information you want me to share or are open to doing some more one-on-one sessions with me, I'm more than happy to engage with you on that as well. So I'm going to start by putting on the screen the resume template that you should all consider using when you're starting to build out your resume or refine your resume. So I'm going to start right from the very top. You know, you've got your name, city and state. We don't need your full street address, just need the city and state. We need your phone number, your email address, as well as your LinkedIn profile link. This is very important. You know, we want the ability as recruiters that when we're looking at a resume, we also want the ability to go from that resume to your LinkedIn profile. So by providing a hyperlink or a link to your profile, that's going to be very beneficial when potential employers are looking at your resume. The resume should really start with an opening statement or a value statement, okay? we're not necessarily wanting to put a career objective here. This is about you letting the reader know, this is who I am, this is the years of experience I have, and these are the areas that I specialize in, okay? And it's very important that this opening statement is identifying to the reader, this is who I am. If I'm a developer, if I'm a data analyst, if I'm a project manager, you need to be able to identify that in an opening statement. And then right after that, we need to understand, well, where are you at on the experience spectrum, right? Are you somebody with 5 years experience, 10 years experience, 15 years experience? So that needs to be identified in the statement. And then lastly, in the statement, we need to understand, what do you have expertise in, or what do you specialize in relation to the job you're applying to? So when you're crafting your resume, it's very important that that opening statement is going to try to align with the job you're applying to, right? That you're aligning your 3 to 4 areas of expertise or specialty that are aligning with the qualifications of the job you're applying to. And that could slightly change for each job you apply to, okay? But it's very important to have an opening statement or a value statement that's helping the reader know who you are, the years of experience, and what are those areas that you specialize in, okay? The next section on this resume is an accomplishment section. I don't care what level you're at in your career, employers want to know, what have you achieved in your career, okay? So this is very important. So trying to come up with 3 to 5 key accomplishments, I think, is really going to help differentiate you from other potential candidates. And what I mean by an accomplishment, this is something that you have done that went above and beyond whatever you're tasked to do, something that exceeded expectations, something that you might have received recognition for. But more importantly, it's also important to not just identify what the accomplishment is. We want to understand, what is the impact of that accomplishment on the organization that you work at or worked for. So this is really critical. And I'm a big believer in wanting to isolate and highlight your accomplishments right at the top of the resume. Because when you get to an interview situation, the interviewers are going to be drawn to that, and you're going to want them to ask questions about your accomplishments. Because in my experience, when you're able to answer questions about your accomplishments, your probability of success goes up in getting hired. You know, you feel more confident. You're able to walk them through your approach in terms of how you achieve what you achieved. And again, in my experience as a recruiter, I find that when you're asked questions about your accomplishments, the probability of success goes up in getting hired. So that's why we like to isolate and highlight your accomplishments in its own section. Some people, what they do on the resume, will embed the accomplishments in the professional work experience. I'm suggesting we don't do that. We want to isolate them as their own section because we want to draw attention to it, okay? The next section on this resume is your core competencies or core skills. And listing out your top 20 core skills is critical when this resume is going through the applicant tracking system. The system is looking to scan for your skills, and you want to be able to put those skills in one section. And this is a combination of your technical skills, your hard skills, and your soft skills. So it's a combination of your skills. And once again, you want to be able to highlight your core competencies or core skills in relation to the job you're applying to. So again, you want to try to align the core competencies with whatever they're asking for in the job description. So again, this is another technique to help get your resume through the applicant tracking system when they're looking to scan for those core skills, okay? The next section on this resume is your leadership principles. So more and more companies are looking for individuals who can articulate or showcase what kind of leader they are. Now, you may not be managing people, you may not be managing a program or a project, but we all have leadership skills and leadership principles. And it's really critical that you're able to identify maybe your top 5 or 6 leadership principles. Amazon is a great example. You know, Amazon, when they're hiring individuals, even if they're hiring people who are individual contributors, they want to know what are some of your leadership principles, and you need to be able to articulate that. So another key differentiator that's going to help get your resume noticed is for you to be able to put on this resume your top 5 or 6 leadership principles. And a good guide for that would be Amazon's 14 leadership principles to help you see which one of those principles is related to you and your own philosophy from that perspective. Okay. Another section on this resume is called your recommendations, because the resume is not necessarily just an information document. It is a marketing document, okay? So you're trying to market your skills, market your experiences. So one way to help with that, to help differentiate you from other candidates, is to provide 2 recommendations from individuals, whether you're currently working with them or they've worked with them in the past, that can provide a quote or a statement that speaks specifically to the skills that you possess. And personally speaking, I like to see a recommendation come from a former manager and perhaps a former coworker or a former customer. But we want to be able to see, what do people say about you from a skills perspective that have worked with you in the past, And the rationale why we put this on a resume is because you've got LinkedIn, which is the biggest recruiting platform out there. And on their profiles of everybody that's on there, there is a recommendation section. So if the biggest recruiting platform out there has a section for recommendations, logic would dictate that your resume should also include this. But it also helps the reader, when they're scanning your resume, to really get a good sense of who you are. And again, it's helping sell the narrative of you as a candidate and helping differentiate you from other candidates who may have similar skills and experiences. Okay. The next section on this resume is your professional work experience. Okay. And what we're looking for here is to get a sense of your position title. First, on the left-hand side, you have your dates on the right-hand side. And then underneath the position title would be the company name, the city, and the state, okay? Now, one thing I like to do when I'm coaching people on helping them with their resume is to let them know that they should put an embedded link in the company name. Because again, if it's a company that maybe we're not familiar with or is not very well known, it's always good to have a link so that me as a recruiter or me as a hiring manager have the ability to click on a link to see what this company is all about. And the other reason for putting the link, it saves us space on the resume where we don't have to give an explanation as to who the company is, okay? So that's very important, even if it's a well-known company, it's good to put the link in there. And you want to put a link that's going to go to their about section, or even if you work for a particular department, maybe you can go to that department's page on the website, It all depends, okay? Now, this is very important. For each position, we want to know, we the reader want to know, what is your top 3 to 4 core job functions? And then we want to know what percentage of your time is spent in each of those functions. The professional work experience section is really just talking about job functions. So we want to be able to, in a very concise way, explain to the reader, these are my 3 to 4 core job functions, and this is the percentage of time that I spend in each of those functions. So you're basically listing those out in this section here that I've highlighted and giving us a percentage of time that you spend in each of those functions. And then what you're going to want to do is, for each function, you want to give us an explanation in the form of a bullet point that speaks specifically to that function. You're giving us an explanation. So that's what the bullet points are for. For each job function, give us an explanation as to what are you referencing or what are you referring to, okay? And this is how you want to structure this, because it makes it easier for the reader when they're scanning this resume to get a real good high-level view of these are the core job functions. And also for, when it's scanning, when it's going through the applicant tracking system, it just makes it easier for the system to pick up, okay? And again, a rule of thumb, we don't want to go more than 10 years experience or 10 years of work experience. You start going beyond 10 years, some people like to go 15 years. We don't want to do that. The truth of the matter is companies are very interested in what you've done in the last 5 to 8 years. So keep that in mind when you're crafting out your resume and putting on your work experience. We don't need the entire work history if it goes beyond a certain timeline. And in my experience, 10 years is a really good number, but if you need to go further back, so be it. But really try to keep it within that timeline, because again, we don't need the entire history on the resume, okay? So after the work experience, and then if you go to a second page, we obviously want to keep, get your name and your city and state. We want to make sure that's on the second page as well. And then you're still listing out your positions. And then we get down to the education and training section. This is where we want to highlight, degrees, training programs, certifications. And what we want to know is, we want to know the name of the program on the left-hand side of the page, the dates on the right-hand side. We also need the institution and the city and state that that institution resides. Now, a lot of people say to me, well, my degree was 20 years ago. I don't want to put a date on that. That's fine. You don't have to put a date on it. But what's really beneficial for the reader is to see a graduation date, because then we know that you actually graduated from the program, because there's a lot of people who will put on a resume that they've attended a program and they'll give it the impression that they actually graduated. We don't want that. We want to know when was your graduation date. So if you're comfortable putting the dates on there, we want the graduation date, the month and the year. And also what we want to see on a resume is, let's say you had your degree or you obtained your degree 15 years ago. We want to know, we the reader want to know, what other type of training or certifications have you done in the last 5 years? So it's very important that we're also listing current training or other education that you have, because a lot of employers, they want to know, okay, are you keeping up to date on your skills? What other type of training have you done? That's really important when you're listing out this section. So I highly recommend an education and training, or you can call it education, training, and certifications, and so forth. Some people, what they do after the education and training, they may also have a section for publications. So maybe you've got some publications that you've published, and it's always good to put the links to those publications on the resume. I am not a fan of putting on hobbies or volunteer work on a resume. And the other thing to keep in mind with the resume is we want to keep it to no more than 2 pages and no more than 750 to 800 words. It's very important that we try to stay within that word count when you're crafting your resume. So again, just to recap on the resume, we're looking at that opening statement where you're telling the reader, this is who I am from a job title perspective. Here's the where I'm at on the experience spectrum. And these are the 3 to 4 areas that I specialize in or have expertise in relation to the job that I'm applying for. So that opening statement or value statement, is going to slightly change depending on the job. Because again, you want to be speaking specifically to the qualifications in the jobs you're applying to. That's really critical. The accomplishments, as we mentioned prior, this is a really important piece where we want to understand, we the reader want to understand, what have you achieved throughout your career, and being able to articulate that and telling us, okay, this is what I did, and this was the impact on the business. It's very important that we understand what the impact was on the business. And again, this is helping with the narrative of selling you as a candidate and helping differentiate you between yourself and other candidates. But more importantly, when you get to an interview situation, it's going to draw the interviewers to want to ask questions about this. And again, when you can answer questions about your accomplishments, typically your probability of success increases in getting hired. So it's really critical. The core competencies or the core skills, we want that cross section of skills, 20 top skills. And once again, we want those skills to be able to align with, what they're asking for in the job description. So the skills might slightly change depending on the job you're applying to, which is very important. The leadership principles. Again, even if you're not managing people or managing a program, companies want to know, what are your leadership principles when you're leading yourself in your job or leading yourself and some coworkers perhaps. They want to get a good understanding of what are your top 5 to 6 leadership principles that you would bring to our company if we were to hire you. And again, as I mentioned, a good guide for this would be Amazon's 14 leadership principles. Because Amazon is a company that when they interview people, they ask them about their leadership principles. So it's really important. The recommendations. We want to know, what do people say about you that have worked with you? And ideally, having a manager, a former colleague, we just want them to provide a 1 to 2 sentence statement or quote, and then you provide their name, their job title, the company name, and the relationship that they are to you. So a former manager, a former colleague, whatever that relationship is. And again, this is not a reference, right? It is a recommendation. It is somebody providing their perspective. We don't contact these people We don't need their phone number. We don't need their email address. We don't need their LinkedIn link. It's just them providing a statement or a quote. And it's helping us, the reader, to say, look, yeah, we want to learn more about who this person is. We like what we see. We like what these recommendations are saying. We like what the accomplishments are saying. And it's helping us make a determination as to, yes, we do want to learn more about this candidate. Because the whole point of this resume is to get you an interview. That's the whole point. So whatever we can do to help with that, you want to be able to put on the resume. So the recommendations really help with that. The professional work experience, again, it's really important to remember that what we're looking for here is to understand what is the core job functions, and then giving us an explanation as to what those job functions are, but giving us an idea of where you spend your time. Because if an employer can understand where you're spending your time, it's going to help them understand the skills that you're utilizing in each of these jobs. So it's making it easy for the reader to better understand what you do in each of these jobs. Because one of the biggest problems with resumes is that people will put information on the resume and the readers have a tough time understanding what it is. You want to make sure that this resume is high level, it's easy to read, but it's also impactful. So if you can stick to those themes, you can really build a great resume from that. And then obviously we have, your education and training or education and certifications. So again, we want to get a good understanding of, what your education looks like, what your training may look like, and so forth. And again, we don't need volunteer work on here. We don't need anything regarding special interest. You may include possibly, publications. You may also include maybe some affiliations of organizations that you belong to that would add value to this resume. So again, that's another piece that you could include in that education and training section. So that's really the framework that we look for when we're looking at a resume.
Cool. So I have a question, Paul. There was another question, but you did a great job in going over and recapping what you talked about, because there was somebody asking, can you repeat that section? Hopefully they got the answer. If not, then please post your questions and I will ask them. So my question here is, when I was creating my resume, I don't do that anymore, but when I was putting my resume together, I was always putting the conferences that I spoke at or all that stuff at the very end as well. Is that a good idea, bad idea? I mean, your resume should be no longer than 2 pages, right?
2 pages, 750 to 800 words, So if there are conferences that you spoke at, it's always good to provide maybe the link, to the conference. So you can put that under education, professional development, perhaps, and training, right? And you could provide the name of the conference, but also a link to maybe the speaking the session that you spoke at, if that's possible,
Okay.
So I think it is beneficial. Now, one other place you can put that on would be on your LinkedIn profile, because there's a media section on as well. So,
Okay. So yeah, drive them there, because mine was actually getting too long. I mean, I had to dedicate more than 1 page just for those, and I was going far back, so I'm not sure which ones to put. But
again, if it's depending if the conference is going to add value to this resume, right? If it's all about what am I putting on this resume that's going to add value, it's going to help sell the narrative of why you should talk to me versus the other candidate. And so again, we don't need the entire history. This is where it's an exercise in trying to be concise, trying to really hone in on what they're asking for in the jobs, and anything we put on here, we got to make sure that it's aligning.
Speaks to that. Yeah.
It has to,
Yeah.
because otherwise the resume is just going to maybe go into a black hole, or, unless you have somebody internally that can help navigate your resume to the decision maker, it's going to be a crapshoot,
Yeah, cool. Yeah, this is an important thing because a lot of people that are part of Optisant Academy are mid-career changers, right? They have been in another field, whether it's marketing, IT, human resources, and they're trying to now change their career into digital analytics or analytics fields. So I see a lot of people that come in, they are very experienced, they have led teams, and they have managed, or some people have been stuck in their career. They're trying to change this. So to this field, which is digital analytics. Now, I think the important point that you brought up is it has to speak to the job you're applying to. So those who are listening, I think, and I'll let Paul talk about it, but my point of view, what I'm hearing is look at the job, whatever that is asking, bring the relevant experience from your past, not everything else. So if you've led the team and they basically feel like this will be beneficial, bring that, because that's going to help your story, your narrative right there. So anything else you want to add?
Yeah, and again, when you look at the resume, one of the exercises that I put people through that I coach is, after you're done with me, take the resume and take it to somebody who knows nothing about what you do. They know nothing about what you do. Mm-hmm. Can they pick up that resume, and can they look at that, and do they understand, right? Because one of the biggest problems is a lot of people that are looking at these resumes don't really understand what you're articulating or what you're saying. They don't see how it aligns with what you're applying for. So keeping it high level, keeping it simple to a certain, but impactful, right? And so that's really critical, and keeping it to 2 pages, 750 to 800 words, because you need to think of yourself in the shoes of a recruiter or a hiring manager. You see, they're getting all these resumes coming in. They're coming in. Okay. Yeah. I don't have time to read all these. Yep. So I need to hit them very quickly with, look, I'm scanning this resume quickly. I like what I see. Look, you know what? I'm going to put this one here. I need to learn more. And that's our whole objective. We want to be able to get them to have a conversation with you.
Yep. Get through that initial screening.
To make it easy for them to say, look, I like what I see. I'm seeing a lot of these great things very quickly. I need to learn more. And that's when the learning more piece is when you get to the interview, that's when you can go into a lot more detail. That's the key here, because a lot of people think I need to put everything on there. That's a mistake. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, I made that mistake early on too. So as resume was getting put everything in there. Yeah. And I think it's one of the difficult part for everybody is saying, this is relevant. How about this one? Right. So,
and that's the thing. So it's an exercise in trying to be concise, in trying to just look, I have this amount of real estate I have to play with here. Mm-hmm. Well, how am I going to use that real estate? And that's the key. And, and getting through those systems, those applicant tracking systems, they're scanning for those key phrases and keywords, and they've got to be on there, even though you might think, well, it's pretty obvious I have that skill. The system doesn't know that. The systems are not always intuitive enough to pick that up. And that's why a lot of times people who are very qualified for those positions they're applying for, they assume the system should be able to pick up that I have that skill. And a lot of times they don't even get consideration. So that's something to think about.
Great point. So 2 questions I have, or 2 comments questions.
Yes.
So Umang is asking how to get this template. You mentioned that early on that you will be providing a link. Umang, so link will be in the description, and I'll email you guys as well. It'll be part of Optisant Academy email, so you can get that.
Absolutely.
And then Tamara is saying, this is great information and different from what I learned many years ago when I started writing resume. So Thank you. This is great. And any specific things, Tamara, that stand out, please make sure to mention those. And yeah, I'll copy and send it to everybody because it's going to be beneficial for those who are not even attending here, but those who are attending, thank you for attending. I think you guys are getting a lot of good content here, good information. So
yeah,
thank you, Paul.
and again, you have to understand, I'm coming from the perspective of a recruiter, right?
Yeah.
And it's very important. So that's the other thing. It's like, it's really important that the resume is addressing the 3 different target audiences, right? The system, the non-human, the recruiter, because I can tell you from my own experience, there's a lot of recruiters out there that are working in organizations. A lot of times they don't know what they're looking at. They use people who may not be as experienced. They're using sourcers. They're using people who may not fully understand the job that they're recruiting on. So believe it or not, that happens.
Yeah, I've seen job descriptions that are like, who is writing these job descriptions?
I don't know who's writing these jobs. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
And then we get to a hiring manager. It's really important that we make it high level for them, that they get it, they can see it, they want to learn more. And that's what this format really tries to hone in on as best as we can.
Okay. So Tamara is saying that job function and percent of time is new to me. That's what she was going.
And what we're seeing over the last couple of years is a lot of job descriptions that are out there, they're starting to put a breakdown of the different functions and putting a percentage to it. So I've used this template, this model in a multitude of different industries, a multitude of different people. And the comments that come back are the hiring managers like the idea of the breakdown because it allows them to better understand what I do on a day-to-day basis or what I've done on a day-to-day basis in my previous positions. So again, it's a way to help them understand. And it's critical because if they can see the breakdown and they can see where you're spending your time, it allows them to understand what skills you're utilizing. What are you? So it really helps paint a picture, gives them a day in the life of what I do. And again, we don't need the entire functions. It's just give me the top 3 or 4
where you were spending
functions. So again, it also helps the person who's going into an interview when they have to explain each of their jobs to the interviewers. Yeah. This is a good template to use. So it helps them be able to just really pinpoint these are the functions and this is where I spend my time. It makes the process so much easier,
Cool, great. Few other comments from Tamara and then we'll move on to, I think, LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
So adding recommendations to the resume is new to me. And the next one, she says, I usually put skills and competencies at the end after education, which sounds like a mistake.
It is, because again, you've got to think about it, that the resume is going through the applicant tracking system first. Yeah. And that system, they're going to be scanning the resume. And we want those skills to be up top so that it's not, they're going to be able to quickly, find those skills. When it's at the bottom of the resume, the scanners may not necessarily get all the way down there too. That's another issue. But also when a recruiter looks at it too, the recruiter, we want it to make it easy for them, like right up top, they can see the skills. They're going through their checklist. The skills are right there. And so it makes it easier for the system and it makes it easier for the recruiter who's looking
to scan. Yeah. And do you recommend using any particular font or bolding certain things in the resume? Or?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things I recommend on the resume is from a font size perspective, the font style. So font style is Calabri body. And on the content of on the resume, you want to use maybe a 10 or an 11 font size. For the titles, for each of the sections, maybe use a 12 font size, and you want to bold those and underline those,
But not bolding any keywords inside?
No, I mean, no, you don't need to bold the keywords. You don't need to bold the opening statements. I do bold the job functions and the percentages. You want to bold that. Definitely want to bold that.
Because that will draw the attention. Like this is what's happening when
Yeah, this is
when
what's
a
happening.
person is scanning those.
I would bold my job titles, bold the job titles. I would bold my degree, maybe some of the training names. Some people, what they like to do on the resume is when they're listing out their accomplishments, they want to bold. Maybe if they're using numbers, they're using percentages, you could bold that perhaps. So it all depends. Yeah.
Cool. All right. This is great information.
Okay. Shall we go to LinkedIn?
Yes, let's do it.
So I'm going to pull up my LinkedIn profile and we can look at that. Let's see if I could share that. Share my screen. Okay. Okay. So on LinkedIn, so I've been on LinkedIn since 2007, and I have found it to be a wonderful tool for job seekers, for building my business, for capturing new clients. So I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, and I think it's underutilized by a lot of job seekers and people who are looking to build a personal brand, right? This is what this is. So one of the areas is this background here. So for me, I have my company name, right? But you as a job seeker, what we want to know is having an image back here. So I'm looking at the image where I've got One World Consulting Group. You want to have an image back there that would tell the reader, this is who I am. I'm a project manager. I'm a developer. I'm a CIO. I'm a CTO. And you want to have an image back there that's going to reflect that. Because you have to understand, LinkedIn is really a recruiting platform. So recruiters are looking at this, and the first thing they see when they open up a profile is this background image. So you want to have an image back there that is going to reflect, this is my job category, or this is my job title. And I recommend people use like a word cloud. You can see, you can do a search and type in, project manager word images on Google, and you get a whole slew of images that you could use, and you could use that as your background. What we don't want to do with that background image is put pictures of cities or mountains or nature. It needs to be an image that's going to reflect, this is who I am. This is my job category or job title. Very important. The profile picture. You want to have a picture that is business professional. We don't want to just have a big headshot. We want it to be a little bit further back. You're smiling, you're looking forward, neutral background. It's just easier for the person when they're looking at your profile that there's no distractions behind you, and that it's a professional looking picture. So again, this is part of your personal brand. This is part of your imagery. So again, you want to be able to have a picture that is going to represent you in the best possible light. But we don't want to just a big headshot where it's just your face that's on there. You want to be a little bit further back. So it's just easier for the person when they're looking at it. Okay.
Cool.
And then under your name, right? So what you want to have there under your name, you want to have the different job titles that are applicable to you, right? I'm a recruiter. I'm a resume and LinkedIn writing expert. I'm an interview coach. I'm a career coach, and I do workplace analysis. So those are the different jobs or job titles that are applicable to me. Now, you could have 2 to 3 different job titles because you want to let the readers know, look, I qualify for these types of jobs, right? These are the types of jobs I qualify for. So I recommend people to put underneath and that's the headline, right? If you look on that little edit button there, You click that on, and it takes you to your headline down here. And that's where you can change that, right? What a lot of people have on there is their current job titles and stuff like that. We don't want that. We just want to know what is the 2 or 3 different job titles that are applicable to you. And that's what go in the headline. Okay.
So what would you recommend here? Somebody who's a career changer.
So again,
they have been in certain position, they want to move to or aspiring to be somebody or some other career.
So again, if they've got the qualifications and experience for a specific job title, then that's what go in there.
Okay.
Even if they've got the educational credentials, and they want to be known as a data analyst or a business analyst or whatever, even though they may have very limited experience, put it on there, because again, that's what you want people to know you as. You know? So it helps the recruiters when they're scanning these profiles that, oh, look, Paul here, he could fit this type of role, he could fit this type of role. And I usually keep it to like 2 or 3, That's important. Okay. Contact info. You click on the contact info. It's really important for a job seeker that you put your phone number and your email address in here. A lot of people will just put their email address, but I know as a recruiter, I want the ability to be able to communicate with you, not just through email, but also maybe, through calling you or texting you. Because a lot of times what could happen is I may have an opportunity, I send it to your email and it can go into your junk mail and you may not even see it. So I like to have, 2 different modes of communication. So a lot of people, they don't put their phone number in there. And I suggest that you put that in there. Okay. And that's for your contact info. See that? Okay.
Yep.
All right. The open to button, you want to click on that, right? So if you're looking to find a new job, you click on that. And what you want to do here is if you're looking to find a new job, you want to add in the different job titles, again, that are applicable to you. Now, you can add up to 5 different job titles here. So again, I tell people that it's really important that if you want to increase your odds of getting noticed, of getting potential job opportunities, have a good cross-section of job titles that are applicable to you. And a lot of the job titles on here, maybe you're a program manager, right? You can put program manager, you can put senior program manager, you can put project manager, different variations of maybe the same type of job title would be good. The workplace, on-site, hybrid, or remote, right? On-site, whatever your on-site is. Start date, you always want to put immediately. You don't ever want to say flexible, because if you put flexible, they think you're just casually browsing and they're not going to really pay much attention to you. Full-time, contract, part-time, you want to click that on. And then click on who wants to see you're open to new opportunities. I usually tell people just do it for recruiters only on LinkedIn. And then you would add that to your profile. Okay. Now, you want to scroll down to the About section. So in the About section, this is where you want to take from your resume that opening statement, the accomplishments, and the core competencies and leadership principles. All of that from your resume would go in here. So that's really important, that you want to be able to list out, giving the reader a sense of who you are. In this About section, that's what you want to do. You want to take the information from your resume in the opening statement, the accomplishments, the core competencies and leadership principles all go in that section. So that's really important. The experience section. So you would click on the edit button and you would fill in the job title, the employment type, But what you want to do is scroll down to the description section here. So in the description section, this is where you would go back to your resume and put in those percentages, right? And then the corresponding bullet points would all go in this section. So for each job, you want to put in those percentages and the corresponding bullet points. So you're going to just take, copy that from your resume, but that would all go in the description section on your LinkedIn profile. Okay. And then you've got your education, right? Now, skills and endorsements. This is really important. So you could add up to 50 skills here. And when I do a search on LinkedIn, I use something called LinkedIn Recruiter. And I'm typing in, okay, I'm looking for this type of person. I'm typing in all the skills that I'm looking for. The algorithms on LinkedIn, they look in this section here to see if you have the skills. And then what it does, it builds me a candidate list. So it's really critical. It's really critical that all of your skills are captured in this section. And then you can add a new skill. You just click on add a new skill. And you can look at whatever they have in the menu. You can, you could type in a new skill. And then the little edit button, this is where you can take out a skill. You can trash it in the trash bucket. You can also pin your top skills. So you can organize whatever top skills you want people to know that you have. So that's really important. But this is something that is also underutilized on LinkedIn, and you can add up to 50 skills. So again, if you want to get noticed on LinkedIn, make sure all of your skills, are captured in this section, which is really important. Recommendations, right? So this is where you can ask for a recommendation, right? So you ask for a recommendation, you type in the person's name, right? So I typed in a person's name. You want to know the relationship. So if they were a client of mine, right? What was my title at the time? I hit next. And then what happens is you can customize this message to them to say, look, can you write me a recommendation on these specific skills? So it's really important that, you build your recommendation section from individuals who have worked with you or former managers, former customers, but they talk specifically about your skills. So that's really important. And that would be it for LinkedIn.
Cool. This is great. One question I had, if you go back to the skills, how do you find the list of skills? Because that is, I'm pretty sure people are not aware of that section. So any inputs there?
Yeah, so what you do is when you go to add a new skill, you can type in the skill, you actually type it in, right? And then it'll give you a drop-down menu. And so whatever the selection that's in LinkedIn is the one that you try to align yourself with. So you got to type it in, and it'll give you associated skills or skills that are closely aligned with what you're asking for.
Okay.
So that's add a new skill.
Okay. And that's the best way to go. I mean, is there any, okay, like when they're looking at job descriptions, maybe that is the place to start and say, somebody's looking for this skill. Let me go add that to my resume.
Add that to my, exactly. Add that to
LinkedIn. Yeah.
My LinkedIn section. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. I have a comment from Tamara again. Love the advice to list what want to be known as the headline section for LinkedIn. That's actually very great point, or very excellent point there. You mentioned about the headline. That is something people miss all the time, because when they are creating their LinkedIn profiles, it just by default picks up your job title or something like that.
Right. And so, giving the reader a couple of options.
Yeah.
Because different job titles could mean the same thing,
Yeah. Cool. So, all right. Any other questions from people online? this has been a great session. I think I learned a lot from this session. I wish I had this insight early on or a few years ago. But yeah, I've learned over time, like, particularly the headline thing that I learned from somebody about maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But that is very, very, that is one of the important points that people should take away from here is add that and your skills, because that's how they're scanning.
It is. Also that background image, it is underutilized so much that people they leave it blank or they put something else on that. And again, it's important as part of your personal branding to identify to us, who are you? Like what, so I have mine, it's my company. So I'm going to have that as my background. But if you're whatever job title you have, it's important to be able to highlight that, So.
Cool. So Paul provides one-on-one advice, services, coaching as well.
Beautiful.
So I'll let you talk about that, let people know how they can reach out to you. Absolutely. I will be putting the link to the template that you'll provide me. So that template.
And on the template is my contact information too, that they can.
Okay.
Cool. What I do obviously resume coaching, LinkedIn coaching. I do a lot of interview coaching too. So I help people prepare for interviews at Amazon, Microsoft, Google, whatever company you're at. And we do mock interviews. So that's been really beneficial for people. I do a lot of career coaching for people who are looking to make career transitions and what steps they need to take in order to make a successful transition. So we do like a skills assessment. We look to see, okay, these are maybe some applicable professions that you may want to pivot to, I also do a lot of work with obviously organizations recruiting on positions. So I have clients that I work with that retain my services to provide recruiting help with. But yeah, I usually work with about 600 people a year on resumes, LinkedIn, and interviewing, and happy to take more people on. Cool.
Thank you. So Tamara says, great advice and insights. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul and Emil. So yeah, it was a great session. I learned so much from this session, and we have to end the session. We are at time right now. So I will post all the links that you need so you can get in touch with Paul, or if you need the template. So thank you very much, guys. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much, Paul. It was a pleasure to have you on the channel.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, bye.